Well, hi there. Warm welcome. You're watching Decoding Now with me, Meghna Deka. Even as we speak, the clock is ticking. As the Wednesday deadline for Iran's ceasefire looms large, hopes for a deal are hanging by a thread. From the Gulf to the globe, there are millions who are watching, holding their breath, hoping that there will be an end to the war. Because if talks collapse, the fallout will not just be political. It could ignite a wider conflict in the world. But even as diplomacy unfolds, the drums of conflict continue to grow louder. The US Navy has seized an Iranian-flagged mega container ship in the Gulf of Oman. A dramatic escalation, if we may add, at sea. If talks were to collapse, then this standoff could spiral into something far bigger than what we have seen so far. And for millions, this isn't distant geopolitics, it's disruption, it's danger, and it's lives which are on the line. So let's tell you first about what happens. We are going to tell you here on Decoding Now what we are going to be telling you about. First thing that we are going to be telling you about is US or Iran. Who will blink when it comes to the Hormuz, which has become the biggest pressure point of them all? The second thing that we are going to be showing for you is who's got the trump card in the Pakistan peace talks, as delegations are all set to land in Pakistan. We are going to tell you about the crucial aspects, and this is the third thing that we are going to decode for you. What happens when Wednesday deadline comes to an end? Will it be a return to the war, or will it be an end to this war? What happens when the Wednesday deadline ends? That's what we are going to be decoding for you. But first up, well, remember, as I was just telling you earlier, US has seized an Iranian-flagged vessel, Tosca, as it was trying to breach the blockade at the Strait of Hormuz. In fact, the US has imposed this blockade since 13th of April. So let's tell you what the US Navy has been saying, the rationale behind this seizure. Well, this is what the US Navy has said. They say that the ship tried to breach American blockade, that the vessel had ignored US's warning calls asking it to stop. The vessel was then under sanctions for the past offenses already, which is why they had asked the vessel to stop. Blockade enforcement was lawful, nothing illegal about it. Of course, Iran has said this was piracy. US says that this was lawful. US forces acted professionally, is what the American Navy has said. They have taken control of the ship, is what President Trump has already confirmed. But listen into the exact moment when US Navy asked the Iranian vessel to vacate its engine room.
Motor vessel Tosca, vacate your engine room. Vacate your engine room. We're prepared to subject you to disabling fire.
Now, with the US claiming that the seizure is lawful, Iran, however, has reacted very sharply, with its foreign ministry spokesperson calling out US for apparently unrealistic demands. In fact, what exactly it is that Iran has said, you have that on your screens. Iran has said that US has violated the 2-week ceasefire as it had promised, that this is armed piracy against a commercial ship which is flagged with Iran. Iran has also said their armed forces are going to retaliate, and that seizure of the ship breaches international law, that US Navy cannot seize Iranian ships. US demands and the proposals are completely unrealistic, is what the Iranian government has said, as per the Iranian media. Now, this tug of war between the two giants, US and Iran, has some very pertinent sticking points. That's what we are going to be telling you about, what really is the sticking point. We have that on the screen so that you'll be able to understand where the problems are going to lie if the two sides do meet in Islamabad tomorrow. This is the first one, the Hormuz hurdle. Here, the US wants an open and free and a clear Hormuz, which is open to each and every nation. Iran, however, wants their own jurisdiction over Hormuz. The second big sticking point is going to be that of the nuclear ambitions. US wants to take Iran's nuke dust, as Trump himself has said that we will take Iran's nuke dust. On the other hand, you have Iran saying that they want to ensure that there is no uranium transfer, refusing to part with the uranium which they have already enriched. Third sticking point, the Iranian nukes. Nuclear weapons is what we are talking about. US says you must halt the enrichment indefinitely, that Iran can never enrich any kind of uranium, even if it is for civil purposes. Iran, however, says that we are willing for a 5-year pause, but that's it. After that, we are going to recover and start enriching uranium again. Regional escalation, and this is another big sticking point. US wants to end all military action of Iran in the Gulf and against its neighbors. What does Iran want? Well, they are saying that we will only defend our national interest. We are not going to buckle. For us, it's nation first. National interest will come first. Another sticking point. US wants Iran to accept the US-led deal, which has a broader multi-point proposal as well, a point-by-point proposal. But what does Iran want? They said that we reject the unserious, unrealistic deal and the demands which have been made by the US. But what happens if Iran rejects it? For US, it's an ultimatum: comply or else face strikes. It is, in fact, President Trump who has said, if you don't accept this deal which we are offering to you, which he says is a fair deal, he says we are going to blow up your power plants and blow up your bridges. Essentially, we are going to hit your infrastructure in Iran. Iran, however, has thundered back, saying we don't believe in ultimatums. The question is, with all these 5 big sticking points, how are they going to be reaching some kind of a truce? Who's going to be blinking first? Now, while all of the US and Iran have been very firm when it comes to their posturing, contradictory posts, meanwhile, have been coming in from the US President Donald Trump and the White House regarding J.D. Vance, the Vice President. Will he be there in Islamabad or not? Remember, there are sources within the Iranian government which say that Iran wants to deal with J.D. Vance because there is very little faith in the others, be it Trump, be it Kushner, or be it Seth. So, which is why the US delegation, they want Vance to be present. But is Vance going to be there? That's the big question. Let's tell you more about this. What does US say? Well, Trump first said that Vance will not be going due to security concerns. Essentially, US media had reported that there needs to be a 24-hour security protocol for which there wasn't enough time to execute that. Then you had the US saying that Vance is prepared to lead the US delegation, which came after that. And then you have the White House, which confirms that Vance, Kushner, Witkoff, all 3 of them are going to be going. This is what the White House said. So you see the flip-flop. First, Trump says no. Then you have the US saying yes, Vance is already prepared. Then you have the White House saying Vance is going to go. But why is it so important to have Vance and also Kushner, Witkoff to go? Let's tell you a bit about the 3 negotiators from US's side. Well, Vance, the 41-year-old US Vice President, has been tapped to lead the American delegation, having previously led the first round of talks in Islamabad as well on the 11th of April. Now, Vance, born in August 1984, he has evolved into a staunch loyalist who's known for his unwavering support for Israel and his advocacy for an America First foreign policy. But he's also seen as a more acceptable face than the others in the Trump administration. Then the second person who is going to be there on the negotiating table is Jared Kushner. He was there last time as well. Trump's 45-year-old son-in-law currently holds no official government title, but remains a highly influential, unofficial figure in US's foreign policy. Kushner, remember, had built his wealth in real estate. In fact, he had co-led indirect negotiations with Iran in Oman early in 2026 as well, just before the conflict had erupted. So, in fact, Kushner previously had served as a senior advisor at the White House, where he was a primary architect of many of the accords there, and recently participated in ceasefire negotiations for Gaza as well, which is why Kushner is going to be one of those who's going to be part of this negotiating table. The third person who's going to be there from US's side is going to be Steve Witkoff. Now, Steve Witkoff is a 69-year-old US Special Envoy to the Middle East, in the New York real estate investor, as well as a long-time golfing companion of Trump. Now, Witkoff has already partnered with Kushner in the past as well to spearhead the pre-war talks, back-channel talks with Tehran. In fact, he is someone who's been giving crucial prior experience with the Iranian delegation. And also, Witkoff has been described by Trump as an unrelenting voice for peace. So can Whitner, Kushner, and of course J.D. Vance pull it off for America? On the other side, you're expecting Kalibaf, of course, to lead the charge along with Arakchi, as they did in round one. That's going to be very significant, the ones who are going to be at the negotiating table. Now, the world, remember, has been keeping a very close watch at US and Iran peace talks. After all, they are going to be held in Pakistan, but let's tell you why so much is really riding on it all. The first reason is that there's a big escalation, as it's the first direct US seizure of an Iranian vessel, which has already happened, this seizure of the flag. The second reason why this seizure of the Iranian ship by US is a huge escalation is because there is a huge risk of retaliation, because Tehran's already warned that there are going to be consequences for it. Third reason is that diplomacy itself is at stake in Islamabad if round two talks do happen there. Fourth is the fact that there is an oil shock with Brent prices, which have been spiking on the tensions. There's also trade turbulence, global shipping, which is likely to face disruption if there is no end to this deadlock, if the ceasefire does not extend. But meanwhile, let's also look at America. It's not just about what's happening in the Gulf. Let's look at what's happening in America. Trump's approval rating has hit a new all-time low amidst no solution to the US-Iran war. Look at how it is placed. In June 2025, which is close to less than a year away, Trump had an approval rating of 45%, and the disapproval rating was of 55%. By August 2025, the approval rating was at 43%, and the disapproval rating had gone up a bit to 57%. Then you see approval rating dipping further low in December 2025, when clearly there was no end to the kind of conflict that we had seen between Israel, Iran. You had the approval rating dipping another 1 point, and the disapproval rating again going up by 1 point. It came down further in February when the war had erupted to 39%. So this was the lowest at that time of the approval rating of Trump, which had significantly come up. His disapproval rating, of course, went up to 61%. But now in April, see, this is the lowest ever approval that President Trump has in America, which is 37%. So quickly, President Trump himself is losing his approval ratings. And now the number of people, or the percentage of Americans which has disapproved of Trump, is at a high at 63. This is the highest that it has been since last year. 63% of those who have been polled disapprove of Trump. But unfortunately, 2 Indian ships have also been caught in the crossfire, because at the end of it all, the theater of war is much higher than the Gulf. America, it even has singed India. The crossfire has been such that the shipping ministry has admitted that Indian flagship Jug Arnav has indeed been hit by Iranian gunboats along with another Indian flagship. Well, we bring you here on Times Now exclusive bullet mark visuals from Jug Arnav. You can see these on your screens. Another set of visuals which are coming in of a glass window. This is the glass window where you can see how close the Iranian gunships had come to the Indian mariners. A glass window shattered by bullets fired by the Iranian gunboats. Another exclusive set of visuals that we have on your screens from Jug Arnav displays shell casings, which is held up by one of the crew members, one of the mariners actually holding up the shell casing and displaying it. This is how close they were when it came to dodging the bullets. Remember, this is a friendly country of India, and Indian flagships that we are talking about just goes to show how much is going to be riding on the peace talks, if at all it happens tomorrow. Because it's not just about the Gulf, it's the entire globe which is watching and waiting on tenterhooks. Joining us today on the show, we have Vibhuti Jha, a former Republican candidate of the New York Assembly. Dr. Veil Awad is joining us, a Middle East expert. First, I'm going to go across to Vibhuti Jha to understand. Vibhuti Jha, why has America escalated this war when it wants to head in, along with its trio, headed by Vance, for peace talks? Why the escalation?
Thank you, Meghna ji, for having me here. So it is wonderful to be with you once again. Look, you have really, I must compliment you because you have articulated the issues and challenges very, very well. With reference to the tug of war between two giants, everything else is very well said. But let's take a step back and look at it. Why has the US escalated on the eve of a peace talks? This is not a war for peace. It is a war for dominance and control. I mean, we must view it from that point of view. There is only one agenda here, which is what Mr. Trump said several months ago. What exactly are we negotiating with Iran? And if, Meghna ji, if you look up the statement made by Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, senators and others, they have all unequivocally said, and Hillary Clinton particularly, made the statement that if Iran gets nuclear weapon, we will use the might of American forces to obliterate Iran. Obliterate, that's the word used by Hillary Clinton.
But Vibhuti Jha, does Iran have a nuclear weapon?
Trump is saying something.
Can America be in a position to confirm that, especially when President Trump himself has said the entire nuclear program itself has been obliterated in Iran? Then what are we fighting for?
It's not about not obliterated. But what Trump is saying is Iran must commit to no enrichment of uranium beyond a certain threshold, and that they will not have any nuclear weapons. Iran is not committing to that. They want to retain their sovereignty to do that. I'm not worried about that. I'm saying that that is the issue. Hormuz and everything else is an offshoot of that. Even Singapore foreign minister made the statement that they refuse to talk to Iran on this, Hormuz issue because it is more than 21 nautical miles, whereas Singapore, the passageway is only 2 nautical miles. So he said international trade and commerce, when you use that as a weapon of negotiation, then all hell breaks loose.
Okay, but Vibhuti Jha, correct me if I'm wrong, Iran agreed to lift the blockade. It is US which actually blocked it. Iran was fine with opening it. There was a time when it said we lift the blockade.
It's a partial
but US
statement.
didn't agree.
Yes, you are right. It's a partial statement because they were now going to have toll, they were going to charge fee, and it was unfettered passageway, not Iran's dominant and control. That has become an issue now. Now Iran is making as a demanding that I want Hormuz as my territory. These are issues which are offshoot. If tomorrow, the war can stop tomorrow. Iran just needs to confirm no enrichment of uranium and no nuclear weapons. These 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years, you know it. These are negotiation ploys to gain some advantage here.
Oh, that's interesting that you say that. Negotiation ploy. Is that what it is? Dr. Veil Awad, let me bring you in. Because it seems to be maximalist position, of course, from the US. But let's talk about the Iran as well. Iran in the past too, for round 1, had said that we are not going to be joining in the war. They're saying that again today. But like last time, do we see a 70-member negotiating team flying in from Iran? What's Iran going to do next?
Thank you, Meghna. I believe the Iranian have been under US sanction since 2006, or maybe since the inception of the 1979 the Islamic Revolution has come to Iran. But however, in 2006, when the Iranian nuclear issue came and there was the discussion, you remember 2015, there was a signatory to P5 plus the United States approved by the UN that this deal was the best deal. And even the IAEA said it openly and written already in their website that Iran will never have a nuclear bomb because they have already signed it, and 3.6 6% was the enrichment of uranium. President Trump come to power first tenure. He wanted to prove, because of his hatred to Obama, he said, I can make a better deal. He pulls out of that deal. Iran go for enrichment of uranium. 2018, look at the 2015 to 2018, according to nuclear agency, Iran never raised more than 3.6% of the enrichment of uranium. Only it was after the American president revoked that. That is one of the reasons. The second reason, it has never been the pretext of the nuclear issue of Iran. Iran, even in Geneva talk, they put it on the table. Even with the foreign minister of Oman said the two negotiators, US and Iran, were on the table, and national security advisor of UK was also sitting inside. They said, we are reaching to a breakthrough. Iran accepted and approved all the American points they have raised. Now, again, the United States go for the war against Iran, along with the Israelis, because it is not an American war. We all know. I don't want to argue on this point. The issues of opening Strait of Hormuz, it became the goal of the United States, because the global pressure becomes so much so on the United States president that even the American taxpayer, the normal American, is suffering because of the global impact. It's nothing that the American does not have the ship. And contrary, United States is making the largest selling exporter of oil in the world is now the United States, is making billions of dollars out of the selling of the oil. Fair enough? So that's the issue. Now, unilateral action by the United States, making this siege of the Strait of Hormuz away from the Iranian, that the Iranian commercial ship cannot go, and firing at the Iranian ships, and you expect the Iranian to give you the other side of their cheek and tell you, beat me again? You started this war with Israel, you destroyed Iran, you coming back now, you expected Iran to sit down and put the gun in their head and say, come to the negotiation. Iran is not going to negotiate with the United States from a point of weakness. Iran is not Japan after the Second World War to surrender to the US. The problem with the US is not understanding the mentality of the Iranian for negotiation. Iran said, we are ready to, and good intention to open the Strait of Hormuz, but provided the United States take the second step. United States never took that step. In contrary, you saw President Trump giving you 7-8 rhetoric, tweeting, contradicting himself in 1 hour, which have created this mess. So Iran will go to the negotiation if the United States lift up the siege, and then we will go to the table, because they sent 70 people delegation last time. They are serious to reach an agreement with the US.
I'll just go across to Vibhuti Jha to answer point by point. But before that, Dr. Awad, why shoot at Indian ships? Two of these ships, which were flagged, Indian flagged ships, were shot at by Iran's Revolutionary Guards. Why?
I tell you why. First of all, Iranian, when they partially closed the ship, the Strait of Hormuz, 8, 10, 12 Indian ships passed peacefully. There was nothing. The problem, people don't read actually the statement from the Iranian. Iranian said, we will open the Strait of Hormuz provided you take a prior permission for passing it through. Now, I am not defending the Iranian on this part. There's a controversy about it. Why not? Now, they shoot it to go back into Iraq, and that's not, it was a huge ship tank that to make a U-turn and go back to the Iraqi shore. Iraq is a friendly with Iran. India is a friendly with Iran. Why they should attack a friendly country? There must be some reason for this. And I believe they did not take a prior permission from the Iranian RCG, the Republican Guard, to get through.
Okay. Vibhuti Jha, is Trump in a war where he can't find the exit?
No, not really. I mean, you know, every war, every scenario.
The nuclear pact was already agreed upon. They were already on the last stage. Why escalate?
Look, remember one thing. The history is a big teacher here. Remember Bill Clinton lamenting and saying that United States had offered 90% of what Hamas wanted for to Yasser Arafat, who did not accept that offer. There is a ticklish problem here. And you see the Hamas doctrine, you will notice that the whole preamble to the Hamas doctrine itself is destruction of Israel. And number 14th or 15th item of the Hamas doctrine is very clear. We will not accept any negotiated settlement with with a kafir nation or a country.
This was never your war, Vibhuti Jha. This was never your war. And if you want to go back to Bill Clinton, we also know what had happened when the Monica Lewinsky case had happened, when that hit the headlines, what the fallout of that militarily for another nation was.
Look,
we all remember that. If you really want to go back in history.
What I'm trying to say to you here, what I'm trying to say here,
Iran was never US's war.
Wait a minute. You have to understand the mentality and the process. That's why I said in the opening, this is the battle of dominance and control between who over whatever. Everybody is trying to extract their own pound of flesh, if I may use the phrase.
Pound of flesh, unfortunately, is at the cost of lives. Lakhs of them being lost already. Let's not even go into those who have been displaced, those who have been injured. That is the real cost of war. Unfortunately, those people who are fighting for power and dominance are not the ones who are losing lives. Unfortunately, at the end of it, ahead of the ceasefire, the peace talks, we can only hope that there is going to be some semblance of stopping, or at least a light at the end of the tunnel, which is going to say that there will be some semblance of stability which returns to the nation. Because as we were started with by saying, it's not just about the Gulf. Iran has not just made this about the Gulf, it is now an international problem. It's the entire globe which is now involved in this war. Hopefully it's going to be peace, not war, at the end of this. Thank you so much, Vibhuti Jha, as well as Dr. Awad, for joining us here on the show. With that, we take your leave. I'll see you again tomorrow, 6:30 p.m. right here on Decoding Now.